is alive, but it is not restless. It is
Imagine this, a world without electricity, without glowing blue screens, without alarm clocks blaring at dawn. The medieval night was darker, longer, colder, and far more dangerous than we can imagine. Yet somehow, the people of the Middle Ages learned how to survive it, and in ways that might actually be healthier than how we sleep today. Forget the polished scenes from movies, where kings tuck into golden beds and peasants collapse in filthy hay. The reality is stranger, rougher, and more human. To step into a medieval night is to step into another world, one filled with flickering fires, whispered prayers, the rustle of straw, the scratch of fleas, and the rhythm of sleep that came not in one block, but in two. Welcome to the strange story of how medieval people really slept and why, in some ways, they might have done it better than us. For the peasant, bedtime began as soon as work ended, because exhaustion ruled everything. After a day of plowing, harvesting, or tending animals, the body demanded rest. But beds were not the private sanctuaries we think of today. In a single-room cottage, the family often slept together, sometimes even alongside animals brought inside for warmth. A pig in the corner, chickens overhead on beams, a cow tethered near the wall. Privacy, none. A single straw mattress, stuffed with rushes, moss, or hay, was spread out on the floor, and everyone piled in. Children pressed against parents, siblings tangled together, and sometimes even visiting relatives or lodgers joined in. Imagine the smells: sweat from labor, damp wool, wood smoke from the fire, animal breath, and the ever-present pests. Yet this chaos carried a brutal wisdom. The shared warmth of bodies meant the difference between waking live or shivering to death. The straw mattress was replaced seasonally, but straw quickly grew musty and infested with lice, fleas, and bed. To fight back, people layered herbs like lavender, wormwood, or mint inside the bedding, both for scent and to deter insects. They laid heavy woolen blankets above, patched and repatched across generations. Some families had nothing more than a cloak to share, others spread their best sheepskin. It was far from luxurious, but it was enough. The rhythm of night was dictated by the fire banked low before sleep. It needed tending through the dark hours. In winter, someone woke to stir the embers, for if the fire died, so might the family. In contrast, nobles lived inside vast castles where sleeping was not about comfort, but about survival from cold drafts that seeped through every stone. Their beds were grand wooden frames, carved with pride, hung with curtains, not for romance but for insulation. Within those fabric walls, warmth could be trapped, creating a miniature heated chamber. Feather mattresses replaced straw, and linen sheets softened the feel. Servants warmed blankets by the fire before the master climbed in, and hot stones wrapped in cloth were tucked at the bed's foot. Even so, castles were drafty, smoky, and damp. Rats roamed freely, and insects plagued even the finest beds. Nobles lay swaddled in layers of furs, hoping the fire burned long enough to keep the chamber livable. Their wealth brought symbols of comfort, but not comfort itself. Then comes the most fascinating difference of all, the pattern of medieval sleep. Unlike us, medieval people did not expect one long, unbroken stretch of 8 hours. Instead, they practiced what historians call segmented sleep. After supper, most went to bed early, often soon after sunset. They slept for 4 hours or so the first sleep. Then, around midnight, they awoke naturally. But this was no crisis. This was normal. People used the time for prayer, reflection, or quiet tasks. Some whispered confessions to their spouses. Others stoked the fire, checked the animals, or even stepped outside into the chill night. Monks rose from their cloisters to chant midnight prayers. In towns, bakers began their work before the second sleep began. For an hour or two, the night was alive with soft activity. And then, slowly, people returned to bed for their second sleep, another 4 hours. Until dawn broke. Imagine a peasant family in their smoky cottage. The father wakes, pokes the embers, perhaps whispers a prayer for the harvest. A child stirs and asks for water. The mother adjusts the baby at her breast. Outside, a dog barks at shadows. The night is alive, but it is not restless. It is accepted. Sleep was not a rigid 8-hour block but a rhythm woven into life. And strangely, modern science suggests this segmented sleep may align more closely with our natural circadian rhythms. That gnawing insomnia you feel at 2 a.m. Perhaps it's not a defect, but a remnant of the medieval body, longing for a first and second sleep. Travelers had their own customs. In inns, beds were shared. Strangers could wake nose tunes pressed into the same mattress. Thieves slipped into beds to rob exhausted guests, and diseases spread quickly. Yet for the poor, it was the only way to rest on the road. The saying to sleep tight came from tightening the ropes that supported a mattress, lest you roll onto the floor in the night. At monasteries, monks followed strict routines, rising for midnight offices, their sleep forever fractured by devotion. Soldiers, in winter battle camps, had it worst. Wrapped in cloaks, packed like sardines beside comrades, their sleep was shallow, haunted by cold and fear of surprise attacks. Picture a soldier's breath turning to mist, his armor biting cold against his skin, his dreams pierced by the memory of screams. Compared to this, our climate-controlled bedrooms are palaces. But sleep was not only physical, it was spiritual. Dreams carried meaning, warnings, even divine messages. A nightmare was not dismissed as bad digestion but feared as a demon's visitation. A peaceful dream could be a sign of God's blessing. People crossed themselves before bed, muttered prayers for safe passage through the darkness, and clutched charms or relics beneath their pillows. The night was dangerous not only because of thieves or wolves, but because sleep itself was a vulnerable state, the soul drifting closer to unseen realms. To close one's eyes was to risk encountering forces beyond mortal control. Yet through all of this, bonds were formed. Peasants, though poor, slept surrounded by family, their children curled beside them, their warmth shared. Nobles, though rich, sometimes lay alone in cavernous chambers, isolated despite their luxury. Who, then, was truly richer in rest? Our modern obsession with private rooms, king-size mattresses, and blackout curtains may leave us isolated and anxious, while peasants, with their rough straw and itchy blankets, found closeness in a rhythm of night that embraced life rather than fought against it. And here lies the twist. Much of what they did makes a strange kind of sense. Segmented sleep allowed time for quiet reflection. Communal sleeping fostered warmth and connection. Herbs and natural scents supported rest, long before we rediscovered lavender oils. Curtains around noble beds acted as insulation, an ancient version of climate control. In fighting the cold and dark, medieval people found methods we now circle back to in our endless quest for wellness. Perhaps their nights, filled with hardship and mystery, were not so inferior after all. So, what does this mean for us? Tonight, when you toss and turn, imagine the medieval night. No buzzing phones, no neon lights, only the slow crackle of fire and the weight of blankets. Imagine sleeping in 2 shifts, allowing yourself to wake, breathe, reflect, and then surrender again. Imagine sharing the bed not just with your partner, but with your entire family, the heartbeat of community echoing in every breath. Imagine believing your dreams hold secrets worth decoding. You might find that the medieval way, born of necessity, it speaks to something we've lost. Because in the end, the question is not whether their sleep was harder, it certainly was, but whether it was, in its strange way, better. The peasants in smoky huts, the nobles in curtained beds, the monks at prayer, the soldiers huddled by dying fires, they all remind us that sleep is more than rest. It is survival, connection, ritual, and surrender. And maybe, just maybe, the way they closed their eyes in the long dark of the Middle Ages is wiser than how we do it today.